And away we go. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome one and all to Coffee Talk. It is time once again for Coffee Talk Live, where we will be having some discussion about what is going on in the world today. We'll take a look at some clips from the news, share a little bit of dialogue with those of you who have joined us for the live portion. And if you happen to be listening anywhere else and you would also like to join the live portion, you can find us Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube, on Coffee Talk and Prepper University. That's at Coffee Talk Live and at Prepper University. You can find me on X at Coffee Talk Chat and fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta. As we get ready to jump off, no felines in the room today. No felines in the room today. Granny Smith was just here, but she wandered off. They may come back. You never know. But anyways, as always, I do try to read through as many of the comments as is plausible for the benefit of those of you who are listening and not able to see. And I'll say hello to some of the people that have chimed in so far. Hugo is here, as well as Dragon, Brian, Monkey, Raccoon, John, who is looking for Thundercats. Wrong channel. No Thundercats here. Sleepy cats. I've got some sleepy, lazy cats, some fat cats, some rambunctious cats, but no Thundercats. And Semper Fi has joined us as well. Glad you could make it today as we get ready to jump off and take a look at what's going on in the world. And you may or may not have recognized the individual on that thumbnail that I had posted. The thumbnail. And of course, that talks a lot about it's connected to Daniel Penny. So we need to take a look at who is that? Is it? I believe that's who's in that picture. He is the co-founder of Black Lives Matter New York Division. If they have any power left at all, because I think that the BLM is losing a lot of power. People do not seem to care about it as much anymore. Oh, they've lost a lot of momentum, actually, ever since Elon bought Twitter and turned it into X. Have you noticed that? They lost a lot of momentum since then. I see Helter has joined us as well as H12. And I'll go ahead and pull up this article, the first article, which is a Newsweek article. BLM calls for black vigilantes to target oppressors after the Daniel Penny verdict. And this is actually very significant, and I'm curious to see how far it's going to go. A New York Black Lives Matter leader called on, quote, black vigilantes to retaliate after Daniel Penny was acquitted in the subway chokehold trial on Monday. Penny, a 26-year-old former Marine, was facing charges of second-degree manslaughter and negligent homicide. The manslaughter charge was dismissed Friday after the jury declared it was deadlocked 20 hours into deliberations. The jury acquitted Penny on the neglect homicide charge on Monday. And that was a big setup, by the way, by Alvin Bragg, because he kind of figured that they would not find him guilty of second-degree manslaughter and pick up the negligent homicide charge. But someone on the jury must have figured out the okie doke there, because if he got the second-degree manslaughter charge, he might have been up the river 15 or 20 years. But the negligent homicide charge would have only carried like 4 or 5. So he was probably betting that they would throw one out and accept the other. And it didn't happen. Both got overturned. Penny was accused of choking and killing 30-year-old Jordan Neely on a New York subway in 2023, even though every time they show a picture of Jordan Neely, he looks like he's about 12 years old. Neely, a well-known, really, Michael Jackson impersonator, I never heard of him, boarded the subway and reportedly began threatening people. That's what I believe he's actually well known for, as the stories had unfolded, being violent and aggressive with passengers on the subway. Penny allegedly approached him from behind and placed him in a chokehold. Neely was later pronounced dead at a hospital. His death was ruled homicide by compression of the neck. Actually, if anything, I would call that, if we're being honest, involuntary manslaughter. Involuntary manslaughter. It wasn't his intention to cause Neely injury. He was trying to hold him for the police to show up. Legends is here. He says he figured out why everyone is talking about Luigi. Crazy what happened to that dude. And Cyberjack Sr. has joined us. Brian says supporting BLM was just a silly virtue signaling trend. And Puck says, you're handing out checks? No, I'm waiting for my checks. Where's my money? Show me the money. That's why this BLM co-founder and all these family members are popping up now. And I'm going to get further into that. Now, here is a BLM co-founder, New York division, Hawk Newsom. And he's the guy that's in that thumbnail. And this is his quote, which he screamed at the crowd, by the way. I saw the video footage of this, yelling at the top of his lungs at the crowd. We need some black vigilantes. New York BLM co-founder Hank Newsom said following the verdict, people want to jump up and choke us and kill us for being loud. How about we do the same when they attempt to oppress us? Okay, that's not why he grabbed him. It wasn't because he was loud. It was because he was violent, but whatever. Newsom also encouraged Black people to hold community events to have open discussions about their needs. The BLM leader told reporters on Friday that, quote, racism is still alive and kicking in America. I know, because you're part of the problem. I dare say Hawk Newsom is part of the problem. So, yeah, of course it's alive. It's alive everywhere in the world. But I'll tell you right now, it's not just white people. Absolutely not. And far fewer of them than the media would have you believe. And calling on saying that we need black vigilantes to, it says, people want to jump up and choke us and kill us for being loud. How about we do the same when they attempt to oppress us? Who's oppressing you? If you were being oppressed, you couldn't even stand out in public and do that, especially since you're calling randomly, throwing it out there to encourage others to violence, which actually does violate the tenet of the First Amendment. You cannot call, I mean, you can say whatever you want, but you can't get out there and publicly say, I want people to go hurt other people. Then you could end up in trouble. Where's his day in court? I'm waiting for it. Tuck is here. Puck says, in order for Neely to die from a chokehold, Penny would have had to apply the chokehold to Neely all the way to the hospital where he died. Keep in mind, there was a lot of other problems with Neely as well, which Penny couldn't have possibly known. He saw a guy being violent on the subway. I'll grab him, get the police. Neely didn't make it. But obviously he didn't hold the chokehold on him all the way to the hospital. Tuck says a member of my HOA was overheard referring to my wife as that white lady. Oh, no. That white lady. You know her. Yeah. Yeah. And it goes on again. Newsom also encouraged black people to hold community events to have open discussions about their needs. What are your needs? A check? You want a nice fat check? Is that what your needs are? You want a payday? What exactly are your needs? What do you need that you're not already getting? Or that you haven't already bamboozled people out of? Being one of the few BLM members left who have not yet gone to jail or been arrested for fraud. Yet. I'm waiting for it. Because how many in just this year, how many stories have we read on the podcast of BLM leaders, not just in the United States, but even in the UK, being arrested for fraud, for misuse and misappropriations of funds? And then Puck says, yeah, where's that toxicology report? Because Neely wasn't taking his medications, but he was taking something. He was taking something. Okay. Quote again from Newsom. Today, white supremacy got another victory. Today, the Triple K, the Klansmen, the evil in America got another victory. Neely's father, Andre Zachary, who filed a lawsuit against Penny last week, criticized the verdict. You haven't seen your son since he was 9, but yeah, let's file a lawsuit. Is that correct? I think it was 9, right? Keep in mind that Neely was 30 years old. I just want to say, I miss my son. My son didn't have to go through this. I didn't have to go through this either. It hurts. I had heard, oh God, where was it? I think it was on Jason Whitlock, that the father, Zachary, and his son Neely used to do heroin together. I believe it was on Jason Whitlock. I don't know if that's confirmed. Tuck says, mind you, there's less than 3 dozen units here, and we've been here about 3 years already. Oh yeah, but she stands out because she's the white lady, I guess. I don't know. I empathize, though. I do. Puck says hurt feelings equals oppression. Yeah, I can't control how you feel, so suck it up. Raccoon says he's oppressed. That Dulles and Gabbana jacket probably costs more than what I make in a month. Wow, good observation. Good observation. Because I wouldn't know that. I dress relatively conservatively. Mostly what I wear, it has a utilitarian purpose. I don't need to show off. But yeah, I hadn't even noticed that, Raccoon. Monkey says the case isn't going to hold up well when in fact he's been away from his son's life. And Jericho says another din-dun-dun moment. Yeah, I know. Where's the drum roll? And a couple more here. Monkey says the memes where the father's gone from the son's life until they make it big, like to NFL, NBA, MLB. You see that with a lot of these athletes too. Dad hasn't been around for 20 years, and then suddenly they come into the kid's life. Been thinking about you lately, and there's Keisha. Keisha, how are you? How are you doing, Keisha? Keisha has not been well. I don't want to emphasize too much more without her saying so herself, because I'm sure some of it is private, but I hope you're doing all right, Keisha. Jericho says what they need to do is use the ID picture for stories like this, not some family photo album picture from 30 years ago. Because, again, he looks like he's 9 or 10 years old in that picture. 9 or 10 years old. But, I'm not done picking on this. But we'll wait and see whether or not Newsom ends up in jail yet for misappropriating Black Lives Matter donations. And we're going to jump to a New York Post article. We're still covering the same subject here. There's a lot to unpack. But I think the BLM has lost a lot of power because before Musk bought Twitter and turned it into X, there would have been a call to arms all across social media, and they would have been out there looting and rioting, especially with it being the holiday season. Oh, let's reparations our way through Christmas. That's what would have happened. As we wait for, is this going to work? I'm waiting for Restream to pop up the article. They're being a little sluggish today. And that's New York Post. New York Post. Jordan Neely's father blames racism and system for son's death. But where was he? Good question. We should all be wary of individuals who call for society to, quote, do something while they themselves remain idle. They're often the loudest ones in the group, but the quietest when volunteers are required. The death of Jordan Neely was both foreseeable and avoidable, not just on the day of his passing, but when he was a child. Yet now the American public is being held responsible by the man who has actually been void of responsibility, and that's Andre Zachary. And this is his picture right here. There it is. It says, after Daniel Penny's manslaughter acquittal Monday, Neely's father, Andre Zachary, stood alongside other members of the civil rights industrial complex. Ooh, I like that. To blame the judicial system for letting down his son. Quote, my son didn't have to go through this. I didn't have to go through this either. It hurts. It really, really hurts, lamented Zachary. Sure. What's going to happen to us now? He continued. I had enough of this. The system is rigged. Come on, people. Let's do something about this. Like what? A GoFundMe, maybe? Violent criminals and drug addicts don't wake up one day as such. They're groomed by a multitude of unfortunate circumstances as children. Neely suffered as a child growing up in an abusive household. He later testified at trial after his mother's boyfriend murdered her and stuffed her into a suitcase to dispose of the body. There you go. For over a decade, Neely took his frustrations out on society by terrorizing New Yorkers. So when I see a father tell the world at the end of the tragic game that, quote, we need to do something, my question is, where was he? That's a legitimate question, and I absolutely agree. It goes on to say Andre that his son, where was Andre Zachary when his son was arrested more than 40 times, mostly violent offenses? Where was he when Neely was struggling to mourn for his mother's loss? Where was the father when Neely was abandoned in foster care with no one to advocate for him? And these are the questions that need to be asked. These are the questions that need to be asked. After Neely's death, Zachary gave interviews claiming his son was a, quote, good man, but we know Neely was struggling with mental illness, drug use, and violence. Is Zachary lying about his son's character, or was he too uninvolved in Neely's adult life to know otherwise? Well, to be fair, they always say that they were good. Everybody, oh, he was a good kid. He was just trying to find his way. Blah, blah, blah. It makes me sick. Jericho says the media is the problem in this, as well as feeding their rhetoric. And Keisha goes on to say, actually been in a lot of pain. Going to move in with my son in January. You can tell the chat. That's okay. All right. I'm sorry that you're hurting so much. I know. I imagine you must be. Since you said it's okay, Keisha has cancer and is going through treatments. And the treatments often are worse than. I know you're off the treatment now, though, right? Didn't you stop? The treatment can cause more pain and anguish than the illness. So that's why I worry about you. My wife and I had been communicating with Keisha through email, and you're in our prayers, seriously. I don't say that lightly. Bob is here. Glad you could make it as I catch up with some of the comments. Puck says, did you see the Daily Mail article about hundreds of vials of deadly viruses disappearing from a lab? I actually have that article. Here. So, yeah. And Puck says Neely's dad can go live in the BLM lady's in the BLM lady's $6 million house. How about that? I know it. He's looking for a payday. This guy was never around. He abandoned him when he was a child. The boy did go through hell and high water as a child. Obviously, it caused him to have a nervous breakdown, and between the drugs and the trauma, he couldn't hold up. Okay, he became a violent person, as the article suggests, terrorizing New Yorkers, which is how he ended up in the confrontation with Penny in the first place. But, maybe as a result of whatever narcotics he was using and God knows what else, involuntary manslaughter, because I'm pretty sure Penny didn't mean to kill him. He just wanted to hold him for the police. But here comes Neely's father looking for a check like everybody else. And he's not the only one, because a lot of the family is coming forward. And I've got, what is this? This is an ABC News article coming up because his aunt was up on that podium too, as well as a couple of other family members. ABC News article, Jordan Neely's aunt speaks out about the subway chokehold death. And she goes on, this is Mildred Mahazu. Mildred Mahazu, God, she looks like a Mildred. Stop. Aunt of Jordan Neely spoke exclusively in an interview with Brian Pitts about her nephew's death. Neely, whose funeral is scheduled for Friday, was described by his aunt as a diamond. A diamond, really? Same question that I have for the father there. He's a diamond in the rough. Quote, Jordan was a very, very sweet person. The people who had all those complaints about him, where he was arrested more than 40 times, mostly for violent acts against random people, I'm sure they didn't think he was sweet. Mahazu said in the interview that aired Friday, he liked to be loved and he loved people. He was very, very, very friendly. She said she's not a judge, but offered that Daniel Penny, the man who was charged in Neely's death, should be punished. Why would you put your arm? This is an older article, by the way. Why would you put your arm, your head around someone's neck and choke him when you know they would die in less than 2 or 3 minutes? That means murder. That's not true. And there's that famous photograph of him as a child that they always show. That guy did not put him in a chokehold thinking that it was going to kill him. There was also another relative who spoke with Newsom from the BLM, who said that the Bible, my Bible says, thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not kill. And she kept emphasizing on that. And, well, you know, sort of. If you read any Christian translation Bible, it probably does say thou shalt not kill. If you translate it directly from the Hebrew, it actually means thou shalt not murder. So you're not supposed to, the implication is, don't go around just randomly killing people for whatever reason. If the Bible does allow for you to kill someone under certain circumstances, to defend yourself, to defend the life of another, even in the defense of property, or as an execution, or in acts of war. But to just go out and be like, I don't like him, I'm going to kill him, not permitted. I'm going to rob you, but to make sure you can't talk about it, I'm going to kill you. No, you can't do things like that. No direct murders. But, you know, most people don't understand their Bible anyways. Puck says these people haven't seen Neely in years. Of course not. And Tuck said their Bible has this, my Bible has a story about Samson. Yeah, Samson was nuts. Samson was crazy. Samson was crazy. And he got away with it by being a Nazarite and keeping a single vow until Delilah tricked him, according to the story. And since it was brought up, I'll go ahead and jump to this anyways. Anyway, and Puck seconds that. He says, correct, it's murder, not kill. Yeah, another bad translation. And there's a lot of errors that have standard, biblically speaking, like the 10 Commandments, for example. And if the actually translated into English is words, the 10 words of God, not commandments. Get this article open. Any interruption there? Because I'm getting a yellow warning from Restream. I'm getting a yellow tag warning from Restream there that they're having difficulty. And this is what was asked of me earlier. This is a Newsweek article, hundreds of vials of deadly viruses missing after lab breach. And there took a year to even admit this. And this is Australia. And it says right there, can I close that? Hundreds of vials containing live viruses have gone missing from a laboratory in Australia, sparking an investigation. But that happened that happened some time ago. Queensland Health Minister Tim Nicholas announced today that 323 samples of live viruses, including Hendra laciravirus, and hantavirus, were missing in 2021 in a serious breach of biosecurity protocols. The breach was discovered in August of 2023, with nearly 100 of the missing vials containing Hendra virus, which is deadly, 2 of the vials containing hantavirus, while 223 vials contain samples of lyssavirus. And I'll tell you in particular, Hendra virus has a little better than 50% fatality rate. That's a very dangerous strain of virus, okay? And they're just now admitting this, even though they discovered it in 2023. Hendra virus, which was first discovered in the mid-1990s after infecting and killing several horses in Australia. Only a handful of humans have ever caught the disease after being infected by horses, but a large proportion of infected people died. Hendra virus has a 57% fatality rate. There you go, in humans. How did it transfer from the horses to the people? I'm going to tell you right now, and I'm not trying to get weird here, but most of the time, for a virus to skip from an animal to a person, it's usually through sexual contact. I just want to throw that out there. Quote, there are serious viruses of animal origin that can kill humans if they infect them. However, infections generally needs hand-to-mouth contamination, and they do not spread, so the risk is limited to direct contact. Thanks for that. They don't know where it is. Apparently, what they're suggesting is that there was a transfer from a damaged freezer to a functioning freezer, and that they suspect that these virus samples were most likely disposed of without it being properly logged in as far as paperwork. I find that very hard to believe. And Tuck suggests that the stream got bumpy there for a second. Okay. And Savage says it's 5x5 now. And Tuck suggests where the carbon they want to reduce. Yeah, thank you, Bill Gates. There you go. Puck says, was Bill Gates in Australia recently? Maybe in 2021. We should look into that. And there's Savage. He says, good day, mate. Hope you don't get sick to death this flu season. My wife was sick yesterday. She was not feeling well at all. I'm all right so far. Feeling a little guilty, she was, because she has plans for me today. She has plans for me today, and she didn't want to be sick. But yeah, yesterday she was ill. But yeah, they lost 323 vials of viruses, including 100 vials that contain a very deadly strain of virus, which is the, where was it? Which was the Hendra virus, with a 57% fatality rate, and it comes from horses, of all things. Horses. And Puck says it didn't transfer. These viruses are manipulated thanks to gain-of-function research. Yeah, that too. A lot of these viruses are screwed with and messed with, and they become more dangerous over time. More dangerous over time. And, you know, you probably just build a naturally immunity under normal circumstances. Under normal circumstances. But yeah, we got to go and screw with everything, right? Bloomberg article coming up. Watchdog says that FBI informants weren't told to go to January 6th riot. We're told not to. This is interesting, and this is where a lot of your conspiracy theories came from. More than 24 FBI informants attended the rally that Donald Trump held in January 2021, which preceded a riot at the U.S. Capitol to stop the certification of the presidential election, according to a report by the Justice Department's internal watchdog. None of them were directed by the Bureau to go to the riot at the Capitol or to provoke the attack or commit illegal acts, the report said. So they had 24 plants. They admit now that they had 24 FBI plants January 6th. Oh, but we investigated ourselves. And don't worry, they weren't told to do anything. Because this watchdog unit is a unit that's under government control. It's not an independent watchdog group. The report by Inspector General Michael Horowitz discloses for the first time that 26 FBI confidential human sources attended the Trump rally. 4 of them entered the U.S. Capitol as the, quote, riot unfolded. It's not an insurrection anymore. It's a riot now, remember, ever since Tucker Carlson got the video, while an additional 13 trespassed onto restricted areas around the building, according to findings released Thursday. Quote, our review determined that none of these FBI CHEs were authorized by the FBI to enter the Capitol or a restricted area or to otherwise break the law on January 6th, nor was any CHS directed by the FBI to encourage others to commit illegal acts on January 6th, according to that press release. And a CHS, of course, again, confidential human source. A rat, basically, an official rat. Tuck says intentionally releasing bugs like those falls under the whole problem, reaction, solution thing. And then Puck says, yeah, that's propaganda. The informant's job was to go start the riots. And that's the argument. But how can you say that, Puck? The FBI had its own watchdog group investigate itself and found that they had no instructions. Basically, there's no paper trail. Just because there's no paper trail doesn't mean there's no wink, wink, nudge, nudge behind closed doors. Hey, if the opportunity presents itself, go here and do this. Word of mouth transfer, which you'll never prove. The FBI traditionally has used informants who aren't official employees to gather intelligence for its operations. Al Sharpton, we're looking at you. The watchdog said it found no evidence showing or suggesting that the FBI had undercover employees in the crowd or at the Capitol. Okay, I'm glad they cleared that up. The presence of Federal Bureau of Investigation informants during the siege has been controversial and fueled conspiracy theories by Trump supporters that the operatives helped provoke the U.S. Capitol attack. You can't prove they didn't. There may not be a paper trail to prove that they did, but you can't prove they didn't either. At least they now admit that there were at least 26 of them mixed in with that crowd. At least 26. And Tuck says, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button. We hope that you do. Hope that you do. I need all the help I can get. So you're not buying that? You don't believe that the independent watchdog group that's not really independent because it actually works for the FBI couldn't find a paper trail. Therefore, obviously, they were not involved. They were not involved. Yeah, totally plausible. If it's not on paper, you can't prove it. According to this, it says 23 of those that attended the event did so on their own initiative and were not directed by the Bureau to do so, according to the report. They just decided to go anyways. 23 out of 26 of the, quote, informants, that were infiltrated into the crowd did not have instructions to be there. They just went on their own. Yeah, I believe that. What a coincidence. 23 out of 26 just decided to go anyway. I've got the day off. Let me go to this rally in Washington, D.C. at the Capitol building. There you go, John. He says, we investigated ourselves and found no wrongdoing. Exactly. That's even more suspicious than the rest of it. 23 out of 26 of their, quote, confidential human sources were there spontaneously. So only 3 of them had instructions to go. That's the most unbelievable part of the whole thing. Oh, no. That's the most unbelievable part of the whole thing. I'm not buying it. I don't know. I mean, that's my opinion. I think that's kind of fishy. I think that's really fishy. Puck says, no evidence found by the government that routinely destroys evidence. Got it. I know. Because Lord knows they've never lied to us before. Transparency, man. Absolute transparency. And again, I offer to you the concept that when government talks about transparency, they mean you and me. Rarely do they mean themselves. Biden's still on track, since we're in D.C. And this is an independent article coming up. Biden commutes 1,500 sentences and issues 39 pardons in the biggest single-day act of clemency in American history. Joe Biden, who has issued the single largest act of clemency in modern history, commuting the sentences of roughly 1,500 people and issuing 39 presidential pardons. With 40 days left in the White House, are we that close? The president, it's not soon enough with all this going on. The president announced on Thursday that he is lessening the sentences of thousands of prisoners who were released and placed on home confinement for at least a year during the C virus pandemic. Why were they locked up? Biden, who faced a backlash after pardoning his own son, Hunter, for his federal crimes earlier this month, also issued pardons to U.S. citizens convicted of nonviolent crimes, such as drug offenses, who have shown successful rehabilitation. This is just a cover. He's doing this to draw ire and attention away from the fact that Hunter got a pass. And also from the fact that he did something I've never heard of before, which is preemptive pardons for crimes that he may have done that they haven't found yet. The president said his administration will continue reviewing clemency petitions to advance equal justice and provide meaningful second chances before Trump is inaugurated. Quote, America was built on the promise of possibility and second chances. Was it? I didn't know that. Biden said in a statement released by the White House. He continues, as a president, I have the great privilege of extending mercy for the first time in your life to people who have demonstrated remorse and rehabilitation, restoring opportunity for Americans to participate in daily life and contribute to their communities, and taking steps to remove sentencing disparities for non-violent offenders, especially those convicted of drug offenses. And if they were given lengthy, unnecessary sentences for drug convictions, that's your fault anyways, Joe. Because you've been put, there have been transport choppers. You hear that in the background? Flying really close all day since like 5 o'clock this morning. The only thing he's got attached to his name for his legacy for 50 years of politics is authoring or co-authoring, if that's even true. If he, I don't know if he wrote a damn thing, claiming to have authored or co-authored some of the strictest drug offense and 3-time loser laws the U.S. has ever seen. These people, if they had lengthy, unnecessary sentences, it's your fault. It's your fault. Tuck says he knew Biden was going to do that. And Jericho says they're about as transparent as a mirror. Puck says only murderers, rapists, and thieves qualify for Biden's clemency. J6ers need not apply. No kidding. Tuck says, I think it's a poke at Obama, who could have pardoned quite a few people who undoubtedly needed it. Yeah. And Savage said 39 pardons, none for CRS firearms. And Lucky is here. He says, the government will never lie to you. Sorry, I'm late. My housemaid doesn't either. Next time I'm giving the giving $20 to the cats. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. And take all the help we can get for taking care of our cats. I don't know what kind. Let me see. It says Thursday's pardons include a nurse who led emergency response teams during natural disasters, a pilot who helped fellow church members who were in poor health, and an addiction counselor who helps young people and dissuades them from joining gangs. Well, why were these 3 people in prison? Why were they in prison? Okay. As infections surged at the peak of the C virus pandemic, 1 in 5 prisoners contracted the virus, according to a tally kept by the Associated Press. Some inmates were subsequently released and placed on home confinement in a bid to curb the spread. So, oh no, yeah, this is just smoke and mirrors right here. This Biden trying to redirect people from what he did. From what he did for Hunter, which again, I'll put it out there. If the average person had that kind of power and authority, they'd at least consider the option. The problem here is that he kept promising he wouldn't do this over and over and over. Every time it came up, I will not interfere with the process. I'm not going to pardon him, whatever. And B, it makes him a huge hypocrite because the stuff that he's in trouble for are things that his rules and laws and regulations put many people in prison for. Tuck says, we've been getting something heavy flying almost every day for a week. Tons of air traffic over my house, but these sound like the big military cargo jets. Puck said, somehow I don't think we're getting the full story on those 3 people. No, because that all sounds really, really cute. But at times, have you heard about somebody who is, they're involved with the church and they feed the homeless, and then you found out they're diddling kids or something evil, We don't know what those people were in jail for. We have no idea. No idea. Meanwhile, taking a look at Biden's would-be legacy still, Fox News article coming up. Biden Education Department spent over $1 billion on DEI grants. U.S. Department of Education spent at least $1 billion on grants advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion in hiring, programming, and mental health training in American schools since 21, according to a new report. Parents Defending Education, a right-leading organization that pledges to reclaim our schools from activists imposing harmful agendas, shared its new report with Fox News. Researchers at the organization poured through nearly 4 years of publicly available data from the Department of Education to determine the number of grants and the dollar amounts awarded to students and school districts for grants that had clear DEI motives. And again, I'm all for that, because for exposing it, that is, because no government money should be going to any kind of political or social programs within public schools. They should be teaching the basics. Teach the kids how to read, teach them how to write, teach them how to do basic math, because they can't do it. They can't do it. So let me see here. From 21 to present, they found the Biden administration awarded 229 grants across 42 states and Washington, D.C. that met that criteria. According to the report, 489,883,000 or 883,000 was spent on grants for race-based hiring. 343 plus million went towards general DEI programming. 169 plus million went to DEI-based mental health training and programming, totaling 1 billion, 2 million and change. DEI mental health training? The hell is that? The total grant amount incorporates both awarded, committed, and disbursed dollars, as most of the grant money is dispersed over a period of several years. Grants that fit into more than one of these categories were only counted once. Parents Defending Education researcher Ryan Stolley explains. He also said that the report likely undercounts the actual number of grants given because researchers were conservative in determining which ones met the criteria. That's insane. It says an example, $3,974,000 grant was given to the School District of Philadelphia for a restorative justice program headed by Communist Party USA member. A $4 million grant given for a 3-week residential culinary responsive computer science program camp for 600 11th and 12th graders. What the hell is that? Is it a computer 3-week residential culinary responsive, culturally, I read that wrong, culturally responsive computer science camp? I don't know where I got culinary for. Maybe I'm hungry. Oh, man. That's insane. Puck says 1 billion. I guess Neely didn't qualify. No, he did not. No, he did not. Legend says, any advice for a person taking a sick day with a bored dog? I don't know what to tell you. And Dilo says, Dilo was joined us. Glad you could make it. He says, just listening and driving. That's okay. That's okay. And here comes some more of them. Excuse me. You might hear it in the background. $1 billion thrown into education, not to educate children, but to expose them to more DEI programs. Not to teach them to read, because they're all failing reading. They can't read, they don't comprehend, they can't spell. They can't do basic math. But we'll teach them all about the rainbow flag, and your tax dollars are paying for it. It's embarrassing, is what that is. That is embarrassing. And then another thing that Biden did Although this one might not be so bad. Excuse me, this is a Quartz article coming up here because I think this is just now going down. Banks could soon have overdraft fees capped at $5. Although this regulation is so mired with red tape, I don't know if they'll actually enforce it or not. Federal regulators have closed the bank overdraft fee loophole that could save American consumers billions of dollars each year. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau announced a final rule Thursday that will limit the size of overdraft fees that large banks and credit unions can charge. Now, I'm going to point out that when we started seeing ridiculous overdraft fees and when we started seeing banks moving away from paying interest on standard bank accounts was when Bill Clinton removed the restriction that allowed regional banks to become national banks, which, as I pointed out before, eventually led to the housing market crash, as well as several other massive financial problems in this country. That's when ridiculous overdraft fees first started popping up. And it, of course, it does make sense that if your account overdrafts, obviously you can't afford a $35 fee because there's no money in the account. Doesn't make any sense. Quote, "For far too long, the largest banks have exploited a legal loophole that has drained billions of dollars from Americans' deposit accounts. The CFPB is cracking down on these excessive junk fees and requiring big banks to come clean about the interest rate they're charging on overdraft loans." And that's the CFPB director, Rohit Chopra. Rohit Chopra. Maybe I should have used an Indian accent. But again, we didn't start seeing that until after what Clinton did during his term. And your organization has allowed this. That is, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has allowed this to go on for decades unchallenged. Now you want to fix it. It says, under the rule, banks and credit unions with more than $10 billion will have to choose between charging $5 overdraft fees or offering overdraft as a courtesy, excuse me, by charging a fee that's not bigger than the cost or losses, or complying with long-standing lending laws like disclosing interest rates if they want to continue charging profit-generating overdraft loans. The agency said this could save consumers up to $5 billion in annual overdraft fees, or $225 per household that pays those fees. Who's overdrafting their account so much they end up spending $225 a year on overdraft fees? That's poor money management. Overdraft fees are a charge that financial institutions levy when people withdraw more money from their account than they have in it. We know this. I think most people know what the hell that means. But again, I mean, yet your organization has allowed this to go on for decades. They've allowed it to build up since the Clinton administration without a peep. You didn't seem to give a shit then. Now all of a sudden, you want to fix it. I wonder why. Maybe because the coming administration is going to clamp down on this kind of stuff? Just asking. Because the IRS is sure squirming too and carrying on about how great they are. I've seen more articles bragging about how great the IRS is in the last few weeks than I care to admit. And here they are again in another article, because we just read one a few days ago where they were bragging about recovering $1.3 billion And now here's another one bragging about 4.7, Associated Press article. IRS recovers 4.7 billion in back taxes and braces for cuts with Trump. Okay. Because he wants to cut them because he thinks they're too big and too invasive. And they are. I'll remind you again, the narrative that is spun by politicians and by the media is that the IRS's function is to go after these one percenters that have money stuffed in their mattresses. But the reality of it is the majority of the people that go after is you and me. They don't go after people that are below the poverty line because they don't have any money. They give them money that they take from other taxpayers through earned income credit. It's hard for them to go after people who are wealthy because there's usually nothing there, because they can afford tax attorneys and accountants to make sure there aren't any mistakes. So who's left? Everyone in the middle. The average, the largest number of people who get audited are lower middle class. So here you go. IRS leadership on Thursday announced the agency recovered 4.7 billion in back taxes and proceeds from a variety of crimes since the nation's tax collector received a massive glut of funding through Democrats' flagship tax, climate, and health laws in 2022. Because remember, the IRS currently is $20 billion in the hole. They were begging for money a few weeks ago, which is why Elon Musk has been making fun of them. The announcement comes under the backdrop of a promised reckoning from Republicans who will hold a majority over both chambers of the next Congress and have long called for rescinding the tens of billions of dollars in funding provided to the agency by Democrats, which of course happened in the last couple of years. They boosted them at like $80 billion per season, if I remember correctly. IRS leadership, meanwhile, is hoping to justify saving the funding the agency already has. And again, 1.3 billion they bragged about before, and then now 4.7 billion they're bragging about now. And I have to ask, how much of that money, we'll look at this 4.7 billion here, how much of it is fees and penalties and other charges and interest? Fees, penalties, and interest usually. I'm willing to bet half of that is fees, penalties, and interest, at least. And how much did you spend to recover it? 6 billion, 8, 10? And how many of those people that you got that money for were actually guilty of something? And it wasn't just a mistake. And I speak from experience because I've been through this. They'll take a small error. You had no intention of causing harm or getting in trouble. They'll take a mistake that could have been corrected and balloon it into something insane. And there's no reasoning with them. You can't even communicate with them. Try calling the IRS if you have 4 or 5 hours to spare on hold for someone to tell you they can't discuss that with you and to talk to an accountant. Tuck says the Clintons are saboteurs. No kidding. And he goes on to say if the IRS focuses only on the top 10%, they'd only need a few hundred agents at most. And again, there's nothing up there because those people, the top 10%, can afford a tax attorney and an accountant to make sure that there's no errors so they don't get in trouble. Those aren't the people getting audited. The average person is getting audited. The lower middle and upper middle class people are the ones that get stuck with audits, or they get tangled up, who still, they might be doing okay, but can't afford to make a $5,000 deposit for a tax attorney to look through things. We're the ones they go after. This is why they used to tar and feather these guys. Once upon a time in America, they used to tar and feather these people. Yep. That's how it is. And again, not that I'm saying let people get away with murder, but If you're spending more than you're recovering in the recovery process, then you're a waste of time. And if the majority of what you're recovering is fees, penalties, and interest, that's not fair. And their fees, penalties, and interest are outrageously high, higher than you'll see from any bank or anywhere else. It's insane how much they can get away with. And there's no oversight. There's nobody watchdogging these people. They can do whatever the hell they want. Lucky says the government is like women. No matter what you do, it's useless. Well, it depends on the woman. I hesitate to agree to that, because although I've had a lot of bad experiences with women, the person I'm actually married to now, we've been married 12 years now. We just had our anniversary, is a real diamond in the rough. She's fantastic. But yeah, a lot of women, though, fickle and dishonest and selfish. So it depends. Hey, and I'll put it again: any government on paper can work. Any form of government can be made to work if you can trust the people in charge, and mostly you can't. Mostly you can't. And I hear choppers again. It's been all day since early this morning, and some of them flying really low. But anyways, with that, we were at the top of the hour, so I will go ahead and sign off. Again, you are listening to and or watching Coffee Talk, and you can find the live portion Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Coffee Talk at Prepper University on YouTube. You can find me on X at Coffee Talk Chat. You can find me on fistfulofradio.com. No cats. No cats in the room today, unfortunately. So thank you, everybody who was able to join us here today. As always, hope you got something out of the conversation, and we will catch you up again tomorrow.